Mr. Parker, in doing my due diligence to see who's logged on, I see several Thomas Parkers, so I don't know if there's guests that could be people that I need to just know are logged in.
We'll go through the screen.
Thank you.
I see a few people that are
Okay,
trying to be me today.
thank you.
Mrs. Wilt, it looks to me like they're all here. All your board members are here.
Yep,
Yeah.
I just
Everyone.
I just saw the last two that I was looking for. Thank you very much, Ms. Ramos. So without further ado, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Directors of the School District for the City of Allentown for today, April 22nd, 2021. Yesterday, April 21st, and immediately prior to tonight's meeting, executive sessions were held to discuss confidential and legal matters. We will now have the roll call. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Brace.
Here.
Ms. Conover.
Present.
Mrs. Harris.
Here.
Mrs. Johnson Watts.
Here.
Miss Matheson.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Thiel.
Here.
Miss Vega.
Here.
Mrs. Wilt.
Here.
9 board members are present.
Thank you very much. If I could please ask everybody to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to start the meeting with some remarks. I want to say good evening to everyone who's in attendance. If all board members could please mute themselves. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for joining us for tonight's board meeting. Prior to yielding some of my time to our deputy superintendents, I would like to acknowledge that in-person hybrid learning began this week, and I want to thank everyone involved in making this happen. Our facilities staff, our IT staff, our administrators, our support staff, our teachers, our students, and their families, and anyone who I'm unintentionally omitting from that list. It was wonderful to see all the pictures on social media of the happy students waiting to enter school this week. And I want to acknowledge and thank you all for all the work that you did to get us up and running, not only during the height of the pandemic, but to the point where we are now, where we're welcoming students back into our building. And I just want you to know that all of the efforts that have gotten us to this point are truly appreciated by the board. I'd also like to thank Mr. Parker for his service to our school district. As many of you know, I've been a parent in the district since 2005, and I have seen many changes along the way. The work that Mr. Parker has done during his time here has been positive and impactful. He's laid out his strategic plan, and he worked hard to collaborate with our community leaders and our faculty to bring forth positive changes and exciting programming. I've had the opportunity to watch his mind at work, and I'm always impressed by his understanding and vision of what can help ASD become more successful. And I want to thank him personally for leaving the district in a much stronger place than it was when he arrived. The Mott Foundation is truly very lucky to have you. Thank you very much. Godspeed, and we'll miss you. And with that, I would like to yield the rest of my time for President's remarks to Ms. Ramos and Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilt. Thank you for giving us a few minutes to share our thoughts and reflections. It was very important to this team that we have the opportunity to wish Mr. Parker well at his last meeting. So I'm going to do a bit of the opening, and then Dr. Brown will share our closing remarks. Mr. Parker, since you announced you were leaving, I've been thinking and reflecting a lot on what I've learned from you, both personally and professionally over these last 4 years. First, I want to thank you for having the confidence and trust in me to lead in a space that I would have never entertained prior to meeting you. You push just hard enough to make us better. You took the time to learn who we are, what our strengths are, and how to get the most out of us, probably more than we realized we had, at least I had. I also want you to know how much we respect all the time and energy you and your wife, Lauren, and your daughters, London and Tamsin, have dedicated to us to get us to this point, especially now. It's not unnoticed. So in that regard, it is without question that you are known for your quotes and analogies, and what we will now forever coin as Parkerisms. There are quite a few that each of us have taken to heart. So let me just share mine first, and we'll turn it over to the team. I have to tell you that alley-oop has a new meaning for me in a non-athletic way. And the definition of sorry, to quote you, Mr. Parker, the intersection of don't know and don't care will live in infamy for me personally. So with that, we would like to leave your last meeting with those Parkerisms that have resonated with each of us personally. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith next.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. Mr. Parker, I wish you well in your future. I'd like to share my Parkerism with you. What truly came to mind for me was the statement, or the question is, where's the damn fence? That was Mr. Parker's question to me after seeing Union Terrace Playground adjacent to the lake. I told him no one had fallen in the past 60 years.
Mr. Parker, your Parkerism is, I'm going to push back a little on that.
Mr. Parker, I'd like to wish you and your family well as you go on your new journey. And what resonated with all of us, and especially me the most, was if it ain't been written, it ain't been said. Grandma Parker said that.
Mr. Parker, you wrote this after the murder of George Floyd. To our students, stay strong, stay focused, stay encouraged, and breathe. Be peaceful and be safe, but never be afraid to express how you feel, and know that we support you. Thank you for all you've done.
Thomas, I hope I won't cry. You know me, I'm Irish and we're a weepy people. In late September of 2017, right after Hurricane Maria, you asked me a question that changed my life and changed the future of education in ASD. When you said, Katie, why don't we have a baby newcomer? God bless you and your family. And thank you for all you've done for us.
Good evening, Thomas. Thank you for all you've done for the school district and the city. Kudos to you for everything you've done. You're going to be nationally recognized, and you're going to be rocking and rolling.
Mr. Parker, thank you for the opportunity, and go blue.
Mr. Parker, it's always so great to see you smile, especially like you're doing now. And one of the things to me is your hearty laugh. And we were in a heated debate one day in the conference room, back and forth. And you're like, all right, be sick. That'll do it. He goes, that's what I love. And you laughed, your hearty laugh like you always do, and said, iron sharpens iron. I love it.
Mr. Parker, the most important thing I think I've ever heard in this district in my time here came out of your advocacy work for fair funding for the district. It cannot be the narrative of this city, this region, this district, that Allentown students somehow deserve less. It cannot be our narrative that we educate our children with fewer resources.
Katie, thank you for making us all cry. Mr. Parker, you'll certainly be missed. But one thing that I will remember is I don't care how the sausage gets made, just that there's sausage.
So I am the last one to speak. So I'll begin with my Parkerism. My Parkerism is you're saying about we have to tell our story. And as you began your tenure in the district, our story under your leadership became one of transformation, one of perseverance, and one of empowerment for our staff, central office, our students, our teachers, and our families. I appreciated how you allowed me the space to grow in a system that when I entered, there was no one like me in this system. You allowed me to exhibit, distribute, and even demonstrate my own leadership as an African-American woman, again, in a system where I didn't see any leaders that looked like me or valued what I brought to the table. And I'm not going to cry because I really don't like you, because I want you to know you did get on my nerves. So I'll lead into the rest of it. I won't miss the pink and green and the AKA jokes. And so I thought it fitting to leave you with a quote from not only my illustrious soror, Dr. Marion Wright Edelman, but also a member of the Red and White Crimson and Cream Delta Sigma Theta. My time serving with you reminds me of my favorite quote from her, which is, education is for leaving a community better than you found it. And in serving with you and at your elbow, I can say that we proudly and collaboratively left the community better than we found it when you joined the Allentown School District. So I will bid you farewell and best wishes on your next chapter.
Thank you, everybody. That made me cry. And on that note, that yields our time in president remarks. So you've got a tough act to follow there, Mr. Parker. Any superintendent remarks?
I don't even know. I didn't know that was going to happen. I definitely, and I'm not ever known for being dumbfounded, but I think I am right now. This city, this district, the staff that serves in every single capacity in the district has been amazing to me and amazing to my family. In the last 4 years, we've had an opportunity to become part of this community in ways that I'll never forget, that we'll never forget. I even had a whole kid here. So I'll never forget Allentown, because this is part of my story, part of my history, and will always be part of my narrative. So I'll say, from a personal lens, I thank each and every one of you, from the administrators that are on the call, to the board members, to the community members, to the teachers, to the para pros, to the food service people, to the security staff that make sure I don't get parking tickets when I park in front of buildings. Like all of that, it just is really powerful and important to me. And I want to say thank you for inviting me into your family. As I reflect on what is the end of my tenure here, but definitely not the end of some really strong relationships that have been built along the way. I can only reflect back to being me. And I want to give all the kudos to my leadership team, The majority of the administrators that we heard are newer in their roles since I arrived. So I am extremely proud. I'm saying I more than you'll ever hear me say I. I am extremely proud of the work that you all have done to transform this district in meaningful ways, from middle school transformation to ensuring that we have a district-wide focus on donors choose. Like, all of that stuff really matters. The focus on equity, transforming our vision of equity from being ancillary to core, and wrapping it around our core resources as an organization, to the operational space where I had to throw a lasso around Ms. Ramos and drag her kicking and screaming into operations, because we needed someone who understood and valued instruction in the operations. I am truly impressed at the team and the work that you've done. But I'll say this, one more Parkerism, right? My first job as a superintendent, my first board president, she pulled me to the side and she said, "Come here, boy." And she was grown, so she could call me boy. And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "One thing you better remember the first time you become a superintendent is the board is the dog and the superintendent is the tail, and the tail don't wag the dog. So everything that happens because we serve at the pleasure of the elected school board for the city of Allentown." So I want to take a moment to absolutely acknowledge a group of dynamic individuals that lead this district to success each and every day, who receive scrutiny when they shouldn't, and sometimes don't get applause when they should. And I want to just individually say, Sarah Brace, Lisa Conover, Cheryl Johnson Watts, Charlie Thiel, Audrey Matheson, Linda Vega, Nancy Wilt, Nick Miller, Phoebe Harris, Bob Smith, Cece Gerlach, Deb Lamb, Ellen Bishop. I've had the opportunity to serve under 13 board members during my entire time here in the city of Allentown. And none of what happens in this district happens without the vision of the elected, aligned governance structure. I truly believe that. I am excited and proud to have had the opportunity to serve this district at your pleasure. And the team that's doing this work, our principals, our staff, are all a dynamic group of people. And we appreciate you giving us the opportunity to serve the children of this district. And I'll end with this. More so than anything else, whether there's agreement or disagreement on the how, I think there's always been an alignment on the what. And my what has always been, we are here to generationally transform the opportunities for the children that are in our classrooms each and every day, whether that's me running around playing Santa or our district focusing on structural realignment of resource allocation. Our children, my message to our children, continue to focus, continue to fight, continue to expect the best from the school district each and every day, because you deserve it. And you have a dynamic group of leaders, a dynamic group of educators, a dynamic group of support people that are going to make that happen and are going to continue to transform. Lil Thomas Parker, or as I call myself, Edwards Boy, is a small part of the larger vision here. And I appreciate having been a small part of this and look forward to continuing to watch this district drive forward into the future. Dr. Martinez, welcome. Absolutely, you are inheriting a dynamic board, a dynamic organization, and I look forward to continuing to support you in moving this district forward in a meaningful way, because our babies are great and they deserve it. So thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. I'm gonna take a pause here from our regular agenda. My colleagues didn't know that we were going to do the Parkerisms, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't give them the opportunity to share a Parkerism or take a minute if they would like to reflect now, or if they would like to reflect when we get to the personnel report, they can do that then. But if anybody would like to say, any of my colleagues on the board would like to say something, please just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Okay, I'm gonna, oh, go ahead, Ms. Harris.
Mr. Parker, how do you think you're going to leave us without hearing my mouth? We both had the same Parkerism. I don't care. If it's not about Allentown, I don't care. And I thank you very much for that attitude of making sure that Allentown School District was taken care of. You and I have butt heads here and there, but it's all because we were passionate about making sure this community, our students, and our family had the best of the best that the administration could offer. And I thank you so much because I've seen everybody grow. I've seen myself grow. And it's because of your leadership. And I thank you for that. So we're going to miss you. And I'm going to miss having conversation with you and coming to your office and just going through ideas together and making our district better. So I say, God bless you and your family and everything that you do. Thank you again for coming to our district and making it better.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to the opportunity for the public to address the board on board agenda items. If individuals who wish to speak on items that are on this evening's agenda, please raise your hand. I will call on you in the order I see them go up. Please state your name and your city of residence, and then you will be unmuted, and obviously you'll be unmuted before you state your city, the city and your name, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Mr. Rivera, can you please unmute Ben Stemrich?
Hello, Ben Stemrich, Allentown. Full disclosure, I'm also a reporter for Lehigh Valley NPR. I don't know if this is on the agenda under personnel or not, so you may have to pull me back. But I was curious to any updates on the Jason Moorhead situation.
That's not something we can discuss at this time, sir.
Okay. Will the budget be talked about tonight?
We don't typically engage in answers. If you have a statement that you would like to have
Okay.
into the record, that's one thing. But this is not a time to have a dialogue.
Is there a point where questions can be asked?
You can reach out to the district. You can reach out to the board members or anyone on the staff via the website. Our email addresses are on there.
Okay, and if I'm unable to get a hold of anyone to answer questions that way?
Well, you should be, if you reach out to myself, my email is on there. I'm the board president, and the administrative staff, someone should follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rivera, can you please unmute Jahira Avalos Washington?
Hello, Jahira Velez Washington, East Side, Allentown, Pennsylvania. I just wanted to speak on the MOU and thank the Safety Task Force, the Allentown Police Department, our community, all of the stakeholders and everyone involved in getting that together. It was anything but easy, anything but comfortable, but we did it. And I'm proud of what is to be presented. So just thank you and kudos to all. I hope there's a time later on where, we're able to speak on Parker's departure. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. When we get to the point where we're at non-agenda items, if people wish to speak at that time, they can. Mr. Rivera, if you could please unmute Melanie Christopher. Melanie, please state your name and city of residence, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hear me?
Now we can, yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Melanie Christopher, Easton, Pennsylvania. Recently, a member of the school board made a motion to change the academic calendar beginning with the 21-22 school year. It was indicated that ASD maintains a student start date following the Labor Day holiday, while many of the surrounding districts have students returning to school a week prior. I would like to point out that those same districts have also applied for flexible instructional days. Flexible instructional days can be used, among other things, in the case of a hazardous weather condition, such as a snowstorm or a hurricane like Sandy that shut down the Allentown School District for a week. Act 64 of the Pennsylvania School Code affords districts the opportunity to develop a flexible instructional day program and apply for approval of same through PDE. Such a program requires that the full 180 instructional days under Section 1501 of the school code be met and that snow days still be built into the school calendar. What changes is that learning on snow days or other inclement weather days could occur through remote learning. In 2019, when Act 64 was approved, it was pointed out quite appropriately that applying for flexible instructional days through the PDE would mean providing inequitable instruction to Allentown students. The reasons for this were that Allentown was not a one-to-one district. Many students did not have access to Wi-Fi or digital devices at home. It would also be costly to send home packets for students to complete independently, and instruction from a teacher is priceless. However, thanks to Superintendent Parker, his staff, this board, and the COVID-19 pandemic, every student in Allentown now has Wi-Fi, either through a hotspot or through one of the local cable companies, as well as a personal device. In fact, this is how instruction has been and continues to occur during this entire 2021 school year. The teachers and building administrators have demonstrated our flexibility as educators repeatedly over the past 13 and a half months, and have proven time and time again that we can pivot in a minute's notice if it means providing the best instruction possible to Allentown students. In light of this and the fact that every student now has a device and Wi-Fi, I respectfully request the Allentown School Board reconsider and apply to PDE for approval of flexible instructional days under Act 64 of the Pennsylvania School Code, so that continuity of instruction can occur for our students, and we can minimize learning loss due to severe and inclement weather. To date, 384 public school entities in the Commonwealth have implemented such flexible instructional day programs, including the districts that surround Allentown. And changing the start date for students to a week prior to the Labor Day holiday would truly benefit student learning, especially leading up to PSSAs and Keystones when most days are lost due to inclement weather. If the Allentown School District were to also apply for flexible instructional days like the surrounding districts have. As an FYI, as of last week, the due date for such application was June 1st, but I've heard it may have been extended to September 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Mr. Rivera, can you please unmute Ashley Strange?
Hi, my name is Ashley Strange. I live on South Front Street in Allentown, and I am the organizer for Lehigh Valley Stands Up. I am calling because one of the things on the agenda is the safety, the safety task force. And last time there was a meeting, the safety task force indicated that they hadn't met. We met with a number of the school board members, the members of Lehigh Valley Stands Up and myself. And one of the things that we really wanted to push on was the fact that almost all the school board members had heard of police officers and security guards that had mistreated or used force against students, but there have never really been any formal inquiries. And so one of the things that we are hoping to work with you to do is to do an audit of school security so that we can see, so that it's not just hearsay, it's not just what we're saying, but it's the words of the students, the words of the teachers, and really pushing to make it so that this is a safe place for everyone to attend. I look forward to hearing from the Safety Task Force meeting, and if you need my information, I can provide it.
Thank you, Ashley. I see no other hands raised at this time. So we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Mr. Thiel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Miller? Is there any discussion? Seeing no hands, Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
9-0, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this point, we'll move on to the informational updates. Ms. Vega, is there an update from the Human Relations Commission?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Harris, Ms. Johnson Watts, is there an update from the Public Library Committee?
I'll speak, Ms. Harris, if you don't have anything to say.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Ms.
Basically, one of the things that has happened recently is that there is room to actually go in, browse, sit down, work on things. So the library is gradually reopening as well. Please go to the allentownpl.org website to see the hours. And so that's very exciting news. There are a number of things that are coming up, so please also go to the website for that.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson Watts. Ms. Brace, you have an update for the Parks and Recreation Commission?
Yes. We met and we discussed that the summer playground program will be going on as it has in past years. The one difference is there probably will not be a romper day this year just because of COVID. For the pools, they're seeing a large decrease in the number of applicants. So hopefully the district can continue to share their posts so that our students know that they're looking for applicants. They're also having challenges finding candidates who can actually pass the lifeguard certification course. So that's something that the district can potentially look into once we're back in person full time and our kids are back in the pools. It's not just because of COVID. They said this has been year over year. The kids are not able to pass the certification courses. City Center gave a donation to the district to help, or not the district, to the city to help offset some of the processing fees for their applicants for the clearances. So if our students aren't able to afford to pay for those clearances, City Center gave a donation to be able to cover that cost so that it's not a deterrent for our students. They received a $25,000 donation from Non-Toxic Neighborhoods, which was an increase. They thought it would be around 10,000, so that was a nice surprise for them. Basketball, volleyball, and baseball will be going on this summer. And I'm sure many of you saw that the Jordan Skate Park had an official groundbreaking on April 13th. So that's one project that's underway. And the last thing is that there will be a summer concert series as well this summer at West Park. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Brace. As the representative for the School District Foundation, I just wanted to state on behalf of the foundation that they are excited that the children are back in the school and that they hope the students are able to use the face masks that were provided by 15 local businesses and individuals who made the donations for the kids to have the masks that have school mascots and names on them. And they also wanted me to remind everyone that they were really excited to be able to help with water donations and things along those lines. And they also wanted me to say that if we had our High Notes Gala, it was on YouTube this year. So if you were not able to watch it live, you can still access it on the ASDF website. And it's about 45 minutes long, and it's a retrospective of a lot of the performances that were held over the years at the gala. And it's actually a really fun way to celebrate our kids. So if you're bored with Netflix and you want to find something fun to watch, you can always go onto the foundation YouTube and check out the gala. And that's that for the foundation. The next up, Ms. Brace, is the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit.
We had a meeting, but there was nothing important that needs to be shared.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Conover, Ms. Matheson, or Ms. Johnson-Watts, anything to report on the LCTI?
Just that things are being sorted out in terms of gear funding. The actual next meeting for LCTI's Joint Operating Committee will be on April 28th. So we didn't have the meeting yet this month.
And I would add something to your comment, Cheryl, about the gear money. I did talk to Dr. Rushton. There had been a question for us about how that money would benefit Allentown students. Because they're at the very beginning of planning how to use that federal money. Not everything is complete yet, but for certain, there's going to be a major emphasis on supplying mental health services to LCTI students. There is going to be an effort to pay fees for credentialing. There are times when we know that our students have trouble finding a lab fee or that kind of thing. And there's going to be money made available out of that. And there will be increased transportation services for various programs.
Thank you very much. Ms. Conover, anything to add?
There's nothing to add. I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. The next on the list is the Safety Task Force. Ms. Conover or Ms. Harris, do you have anything to report? If not, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would like to say that the Safety Task Force has been meeting over the past year, and there's times when there may not be nothing to report, but I can say the task force, along with Allentown Police Department, stakeholders, community members, parents, have really been working diligently to come up with a plan for our students. And tonight we're going to have a presentation that should be able to bring folks up to speed as to what it is we have been doing. And so at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Ms. Conover. If Jose, if you could put the presentation up. So while he's getting that up, I'll say to Ms. Conover's words and to Ms. Harris, who is the other chair of the Safety Task Force in terms of board reps, the Safety Task Force has been hard at work addressing one of the more critical items in our district, but also ensuring to take the appropriate amount of time to have an outcome that is representative of the needs of our entire student body. Nearly 2 years ago, we began to have a conversation around safety, and it began with the memorandum of understanding between the police department and the school district that guides how police officers can interact with students in the school district. And that began to branch a conversation where traditionally that was a document that processed through administration and then was signed off on between the district and the police department. When that MOU came back a couple of years ago, we, again, based on the board's expectations of ensuring that we engage community and ensuring that we have requisite process to address concerns, we took the MOU and rather than processing it administratively, we took it through the safety task force and gave the safety task force the responsibility and the opportunity to review, address, revise the MOU, but in a broader sense, the entire focus of safety for our students, both physical, emotional, psychological. How do we ensure that we have the right type of learning environment for our kids and utilize this MOU to be a part of a broader conversation about safety? So we set the expectation for the safety task force to do two things. One, to address the concerns in the MOU and make recommendations around some edits to the way that our APD and ASD engagement happens. And two, to make a broader list of recommendations to the administration and to the board that for the next year can drive our focus in creating safer environments for all of our children involved. Hit it, Jose. So with that, just as a start, go to the next slide. We want to run through a bit of conversation today. Myself, Ms. Pollock, who is the lead of Safety Task Force, Mr. Falco, who's no longer here with us, was co-lead as well. Dr. Brown and Ms. Ramos are going to share the outcomes of the work of the Safety Task Force over the last, I believe it's about 19 months, and make recommendations to the board for a more broad conversation around safety for our students in the entire district. So I won't read through each and every slide, but essentially the Safety Task Force is a multidisciplinary group of individuals that has administrators, teachers, parents, students, community members, board members, all focusing, and the Allentown Police Department, all focusing on ensuring that we collaboratively work to address the needs of children in our district. Next slide. Dr. Brown can speak a little bit to how this work aligns with our strategic framework.
Sure. That first goal area of cultivating a culture in which our students feel safe, valued, and nurtured was definitely an opportunity to expand this partnership and to really get all parties on board with supporting not only this goal area, but the strategic action of really moving our partners, especially APD, closer to the center, if you will, of what we are doing and prioritizing as a district, i.e. restorative practices and any other sort of culture and climate pieces that we know are absolutely key in building the relationships to support a safe and nurturing environment for our students.
So just a preview of the members on the Safety Task Force. And again, during the process, and this is where I have to give kudos to our parent representatives and our board representatives, during the process of having these conversations, we actually paused and expanded the committee because we felt we needed some additional voices in the room to ensure that whatever the outcomes were truly representative of multiple points of view. So you'll see our board members, Ms. Harris and Ms. Conover, here, as well as a number of members of our central office, a number of members of our teaching and instructional staff, our parents, our students, community members, as well as a number of members of the Allentown Police Department. I'll say during this process, there has been 100% commitment from members of this team to come to the table. And I think Brian Sickett said something earlier about having really good conflict and iron sharpening iron. We've had really good conflict in these rooms. Sometimes we left mad, but we always came back. because it's a really emotional topic when we talk about student safety. And everybody brought those emotions to the room because we knew that if we could do this collaboratively, we would have a great outcome for our children.
So as Mr. Parker mentioned, one of the key goals of the task force was to include a wider range of stakeholders to really ensure we were hearing the voices of our students, staff, families, and our community. So in addition, we had also added a number of those roles to our district level safety task force and our building level safety task force committees. And as an additional layer to include more stakeholders and also to create a space for open dialogue, we held both focus groups and we surveyed our staff, students, family, and community members around overall safety within the district, including strengths and areas of concerns and their feelings around school resource officers. So the survey data and focus group feedback really gave the committee a deeper understanding of the thoughts and feelings of our overall community. So we surveyed a total number of 3,356 staff, students, parents, family, and community members, and had 176 focus group participants in total.
So with that as a bit of an introduction, I want to spend a few moments walking through the recommendations from the Safety Task Force. And these are recommendations to the Superintendent's Office and to the Board of Education that collectively and collaboratively, we believe are critical and important in this next year to begin to drive a safer environment for our children. First, the recommendation is to revise the ASD APD MOU with a focus on stakeholder input and research to a more broad view of how school district and police department relationships work across the country. Second, to communicate celebrations frequently and through multiple means. Again, with the understanding that safety is also inclusive of emotional and psychological means. How do we ensure that students feel safe, valued, and nurtured, and staff feel safe, valued, and nurtured in our buildings? Next, increase time during the school day for focused attention on climate and culture. An example of that would be a citizenship period, or in some schools, there's an advisory that becomes a space and opportunity for relationships to be built and value to be attained. Next, increasing mental health supports, resources, and staff in all schools. And this is one that was unanimous across the board. We need to ensure that as we resource allocate, we increase mental health supports, resources, and staff across the board in our school district. Second, increasing health and dental services. I'm going to go back to the social determinants of health and education being one of the social determinants of health as an old Mike Felix reference for those who haven't been here forever. How do we ensure that we have the and Dave Zimmerman talking about social determinants of health? If we can improve health outcomes, we can improve educational outcomes and ensure that students have a holistically better experience in our school environment. Next, identify and provide training and resources to improve overall culture and climate, including the continued implementation of restorative practices. Again, this is a nod to the fact that a year and a half ago, right before COVID hit, the district made the commitment to become a restorative district from top to bottom. We transitioned away from a number of anecdotal ancillary programs and invested as an organization in becoming restorative to rebuild relationships with staff, students, parents, and community. Our safety task force recommends continuing this work and increasing the focus on restorative practices. Next, create systems for data collection, data review, analysis, and targeted actions. And I think we had a community member that spoke about this just a few minutes ago as well. As we move forward in terms of safety and security, we have data blocks that exist in different spaces. The recommendation for the committee, and again, connecting to that theory behind the strategic framework, is now as we transition that into a strategic plan, how do we ensure that safety and security has baseline metrics and information that we monitor and communicate along the way in a clear, concise, and communicable manner? So one of the recommendations of the Safety Task Force is to move in that direction in a more cohesive way. Next, conducting a comprehensive physical safety audit in all buildings within the next 6 months and identify actions and resources. Again, knowing that safety is inclusive of emotional and psychological, but also a number of physical safety concerns that relate to building usage and capacity. The recommendation is conduct a safety audit and utilize that audit to create a list of recommendations of things that need to be improved, fixed, replaced, et cetera, in our buildings to ensure that it's the most safe environment for our kids. And I think I see building committee and Nick and Tom Smith smiling somewhere in the corner. The next recommendation and the last recommendation is a biannual check-in on the progress of recommendations. And I think, I forget who said it in one of the Parkerisms, that my granny used to always say, if it ain't been written, it ain't been said. So how do we ensure as we make these recommendations that we're not just creating a document and a conversation that goes away when this meeting ends, but building in expectations for that biannual check-in so that we communicate to the Safety Task Force and to the board progress on the recommendations that we're bringing this evening. And I'll close this piece by saying it's a much broader conversation in our district about safety for students, families, staff, community. And the Safety Task Force, I think, started more in a myopic way, thinking and talking about SROs and the police and the MOU, and really expanded that to a much broader conversation about how we can increase safety for all of our students in the district. Ms. Pollitt. Or is this meeting?
That's you.
Thank you. So one of the things we wanted to dive in a little bit deeper is the recommendation number 1, which is the memorandum of understanding and revising that APD ASD memo. As we said, this is a document that is signed every 2 years by the superintendent and the chief of police. Traditionally, it's not one that's discussed at a board meeting and with the Safety Task Force and the board. We're making that adjustment to the way that we process information in the district. So, and I have to pause here to say that we have to give a huge amount of kudos to Chief Granitz and the Allentown Police Department for being at the table in every meeting, for being engaged, for pushing back when there needed to be pushback, and for acquiescing and understanding in spaces where there needed to be more understanding. They have been great partners sitting at the table and having this conversation differently than it's ever been had before in our district and in our relationship. So with that, Ms. Pollitt is going to go into some of the changes that we're proposing in the new memorandum based on the feedback that we received from all of our stakeholders and the work of the Safety Task Force.
So before I get into the changes in the MOU, the revision process started in early spring or summer of last year. We did a reset of the overall work of the committee and began to focus on the MOU. And we started the process by researching high quality MOUs across a number of districts and engaging our stakeholders through the focus groups and surveys, as I mentioned earlier. And in addition to listening to various perspectives from our community members. In November, December of last year, we, along with APD, submitted our first finalized version of the MOU to our legal teams. And we have continued to review and collaborate on the MOU to come to an agreed upon document that really captures the recommendations of the committee that are inclusive of the stakeholder feedback. So there are a number of critical recommendations, like Mr. Parker mentioned, that the task force felt very strongly about including and making sure were included in the MOU. So the first recommendation was to engage stakeholders and gather input to inform our MOU revisions, defining terminology used throughout the MOU to ensure a common understanding of the memorandum of all of our stakeholder groups. Also clearly defining role expectations for building administrators, SROs, and school staff. And as we continue the work of the committee, we will continue to detail what that looks like at the building level. Include a district representative in the SRO selection and deployment process, and define required critical knowledge and training, and identify the gaps that align with the district's priorities. We also felt it important to make sure that notification obligations that include clear language around incident reporting and use of mechanical restraints was included, and a very clear and transparent complaint filing process for families.
So if I could underline, if you can go back for a second, I want to underline a couple of those that become, I think, really important to the conversation, especially with the space that we're in as a nation in right now with police departments, with schools, and with safety of children in general. Again, I'll underline number 4, where now the expectation is that we transition to a space where SROs are identified not just singularly by the APD, but there's a school district representative that will be a part of the process for selecting and deploying the officers to ensure that there's an alignment with the kind of the vision and expectations and processing of information at the school district level. I'll highlight again number 6, where there's a continued conversation around obligations for notification. We have had a number of strong conversations around the school to prison pipeline, and we know that the school to prison pipeline is enhanced when we don't have our arms around exactly what information and how information is shared with policing agencies. The policing agencies are designed to ensure that their safety around significant and major concerns in our buildings that create unsafe environments for children and staff, but they are not designed to become engaged in issues of discipline or issues of administration that don't need to be engaged with policing agencies. So being really clear about the expectations in that domain became something that was a #1 priority in our safety task force conversations. And I think that was shared by the district and the police department. And how do we ensure, and I'm pontificating, Tiffany, I'm sorry, I'm off. How do we ensure that the police department and the officer understands the roles, policies, procedures, and processes, and also the teachers, administrators, et cetera, understand them, and our parents and our students have access to that understanding as well. So there's nothing that happens in the dark. There's clear and concise communication around expectations and around the parameters of everyone's ability and capacity in those buildings. And number 7 is another that I'll underline. And again, to the point of ensuring that we have a process that allows us to self-check. If there is a concern, there's a mechanism now that will allow families to file a complaint that will be reviewed by the district, by the police department, to ensure that if there is a concern that is outside of the norm and expectation of the relationship, then there's a mechanism that allows us to address it, and to address it fairly quickly. So I wanted to just underline a few of those that I thought were really important for ensuring that we have safe environments in our buildings.
Another important ask of the task force was that the MOU could be easily located on our district website. So it can be, just to give you an idea, you can find it under our departments tab, operations, and then you go to safety task force. And the purpose of the task force, you'll be able to find that there along with the MOU.
as we move forward with the implementation, we're looking at this in two spaces. One obviously is short term. We have students returning during this pandemic and in this hybrid model, and we have reduced numbers. So as a result, the Allentown Police Department has worked with our team, our administrative team, to ensure that we do have resources on the ground next week when our secondary students return. So we have 4 trained school resource officers that will be on site throughout the district over the course of our school days to assist as needed in those incidents where we might need them. In addition to that resource during the short term, we have been assured by the police department that there will be extra support out in the city as students are dismissing and walking home and increasing those patrols so that our students have that support as they're walking to and from school. So that's sort of our short-term response. And I'll go back to what Ms. Avile said, what Mr. Parker said, Dr. Brown, Ms. Pollock. This has been a really major undertaking for us, and we're proud of how far we were able to come. We did have really hard conversations. We had really tough conversations, and we continued to come to the table to get to this place. And so with that, the district plays a big responsibility in the implementation of this MOU. We hold space in the document that gives us the opportunity to participate in selection processes, to have a say in how things are organized. But beyond that, ASD holds a responsibility in ensuring our administrative team and our staff understands what sits in that document and what our responsibilities are. And so what we're working through at this point, now that we've hit this place, because this has been a long time coming, and up until today, bringing forward and confirming where we would land on certain areas. But we're working through our implementation plan to ensure that our staff is ready long-term to implement in the 21-22 school year. So as Mr. Parker said, as we revisit and report back, we'll have additional information to share around our space in that implementation process.
So just in closing, and thank you again to our Safety Task Force board members for allowing us space and opportunity to have this dialogue today, because we think it's an important one. We wanted to circle back to the Safety Task Force recommendations, and I'll tell you, I've been a bit stubborn and a bit hard-headed on this one all along the way. We're having conversations about SROs and police department, absolutely, but that is not the alpha and omega of safety in our school buildings, or in our community. There is a broader perspective that we have to have when we begin to talk about safety in our buildings. The school to prison pipeline encompasses police and policing in schools, but it also encompasses these type of culture and climate that is available and engaged in our buildings, and whether or not the adults in our buildings are engaging our students in a way that is driving them to have greater outcomes and better relationships. So I always challenge the team that we need to pull back and pull up and ensure that in this conversation, we don't become pigeonholed into yes or no from a police standpoint. This is a broader conversation about safety, and how do we ensure in a really comprehensive and cohesive way that we make recommendations to the district that allow for resource allocation, time, energy, and money around the concerns that our children and our community communicated in those surveys and those focus groups, that we're going to create safer environments overall. So I wanted to end again on the slide with the list of recommendations, so that as we drive conversations out forward, it's with the expectation that this administration addresses these concerns along with the board and with the Safety Task Force, so that we create safe and dynamic spaces for our children. And I'd like to just acknowledge in closing our members of the Safety Task Force. Again, we met often, we met during the day, we met during the evening, and each and every one of them was absolutely committed. I wish I could read off all the names, but I'll probably get booed off stage. it was dynamic. So to our principals, to our teachers, to our students, to our community members, I want to say thank you. I think we've created a list of recommendations that allow this board, this district, and this community to know that we're creating safer environments. We're addressing concerns that are present in our nation and in our community, but we're doing so with a wide view so that we can ensure great outcomes for all children. Thank you. Ms. Conover.
Thank you, Mr. Parker, and Dr. Brown, and Ms. Ramos, and Ms. Polak for your presentation. And for the presentation, you were right, Mr. Parker. We have all worked really hard. At this time, I think we have Cheryl Johnson-Watts had her hand up.
Yes. So I guess this is a combination acknowledgement of Mr. Parker and a comment on the safety task force. There's something that's not mentioned here. And I want to acknowledge Superintendent Parker for this. Back on February 14th in 2018, a gunman opened fire with a semi-automatic rifle at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, killing 17 people and injuring 17 others. So that was on February 14th. Well, I still have in my calendar February 22nd, which was supposed to be a regular board meeting. And Mr. Parker said, oh, no, we're all going to go down to Darragh and we're going to meet with the community.
Yep.
And we're going to hear from the community how they feel after this incident. And
Yes.
it was an extensive meeting. We had breakouts. It was amazing to hear young people who now have gone on to college talk about their immediate experience, what it felt like to watch the news, and what it felt like for them being a student in and out of the buildings every day. And it brought together parents whose children have not now gone on to other things in life, as well as children who are now in high school. And there are people who are sitting right here in this panelist group of central office who were still not in central office at the time. So this process, although we see a timeline here, which is centered more around a more immediate or recent crisis, Mr. Parker, you went into high gear way back in 2018. And with all the other different things that have gone on that have, taken precedence or priority, you stay true to that. You stay true to that broader, larger conversation about school safety. So I want to acknowledge you for that. And thank you so much for this presentation and putting a bow on this before you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cheryl Johnson-Watts. And thank you again, Mr. Parker. So this concludes our safety report, the safety section of our agenda tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Conover. That leads us to the last informational update, which is from our student representatives. So Elijah Albertstein is here from William Allen High School.
Good evening. First of all, this past week we had 2 NHS inductions for our new National Honor Society members, one during the school day and one after school. And in 2 weeks, we're having a Math Honor Society induction, and students from both of these groups coordinated through the National Honor Society Club at Allen. We're part of Operation Inspiration. We just wrapped up with that. We had students reading to elementary schoolers. We had middle schoolers who interact with our students on like a panel about success in high school. There was a music lab that we put together to like bring a little bit of music, and we had an exercise project that we did with the elementary schoolers. We also, if any students are interested in working for the city of Allentown, our counselor Rena Dugan has been working to coordinate with that. Our spring sports season has started off great, and our softball team just had their biggest win yet this season. They beat Allentown Central Catholic 7-4. Our history teacher and head boys volleyball coach, Tim Luder-Schmidt, just celebrated his 100th victory as the head coach at Allen. So congratulations, Mr. Luderschmidt. Our Dance Academy dance concepts classes and some of our Allen Dance alumni have been working together to put together a dance concert for the spring. And I'm very proud to say that our Odyssey of the Mind team came in first place at our state competition and will now be moving on to represent Allen in the international competition virtually. And then on a personal note and as a representative, I want to give Mr. Parker a huge thank you. I came into the district when I was in 7th grade, and that's also the year he came. And thank you so much for everything you've done for us. It's been amazing to have you as our superintendent. And on that same note, I would like to welcome Dr. Martinez as our new interim. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Elijah. Next on my agenda here is Messiah Crawl from Building 21.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to give our report from Building 21. Our middle school visits and enrollment process are complete. We are now communicating with our oncoming 8th graders and families and planning the transition over a summer bridge program. Our building has passed our opening walkthroughs. I'm excited to say we'll be back in school on Monday. I'm excited to see all my teachers. We welcome a small group of our current year 1 students into our building this week for building tours to get the kids, to know the school better. This upcoming Tuesday, the First Commonwealth will be awarding 2,500 in scholarships to over 15 of our year 3 students. PP&L presented the available career and energy options to our year 1 students. And I am excited to let you all know, after 4 years of exploring the healthcare opportunities that Building 21 has given me and I have experienced, I have been accepted to Cedar Crest for nursing. And that is all.
Well, on behalf of everybody on this call, congratulations and thank you for sharing that news with us. That's very exciting. And thank you for the updates about Building 21. Next on my list is Janiyah Treadwell from DRF, and I apologize. I think I just mispronounced your last name, Treadwell.
Hi everyone. So Janiyah wasn't able to make it today. So my name is Zahi Awad. I'm a senior in the secondary board representative at DRF High School. This month's DRF sports teams had several victories. The track and field team beat Allentown Central Catholic, and they've been having a lot of different sprints and hurdles in districts and stuff. And our Huskies also beat Canaries in baseball at a Coca-Cola Park with a score of 7-2. Our Huskies also received several college acceptance to competitive and Ivy League colleges. Alondra Rosario got accepted to Cornell, Penn State, Lehigh University, Lafayette College, Penn State, Lehigh Valley, Bucknell, Carnegie Mellon, and many more. Janiyah Treadwell also got accepted to Bucknell University, Penn State University, Muhlenberg College. Lucette Cardenas got accepted to Temple University in Japan. We have also accepted to Lehigh University Thomas Shkif, Mustafa Al-Tahan, Laura Lee Luke, and Jackie Vu. We also have Jose Figueroa Gomez into Lafayette College. Sierra Payne got accepted to Bridgewater State University, Bay Path University, Kutztown, Wilkes, Merrimack College, Bloomsburg University, and also a couple other colleges. Gilberto Alvarado got accepted to Bucknell. And we also have also acceptance from University of Southern California, University of Virginia, La Salle University, Moravian College. You could just tell there's a lot of colleges, and this is just an amazing accomplishment from our Huskies. And I also have been accepted and will be attending NYU Abu Dhabi. And also I want to thank Superintendent Mr. Parker just for everything he's done to us, and wish you the best in the future, and welcome Dr. Martinez. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sahi. And that concludes our informational updates for the evening. We are now moving into the Board of Directors report, and it is with sadness that I need to share the loss of an ASD staff member, Ms. Rebecca Bidding, who served as a librarian in ASD in both Robb and Trexler. Ms. Ramos, would you please read the obituary minute?
It is with sincere regret and deep sorrow that we record the death of Rebecca Bidding on March 28, 2021. In recognition thereof, the Board of Directors submits the following obituary minute and resolution. Whereas Rebecca Bidding was a faithful and devoted employee of the Allentown School District for over 15 years, and whereas in her position as librarian at Robb and Trexler Middle Schools, she carried out her duties in a caring and professional manner, and whereas she treated colleagues, other staff, and students with a cheerful attitude and willingness to help, and whereas she provided the students of Robb and Trexler Middle Schools with a pleasant and encouraging learning environment, and whereas her passing is marked by a deep sense of loss in the district, especially among the Robb and Trexler family, be it resolved that the Board of Directors take note of the untimely death of this faithful employee by causing this obituary minute and resolution to be spread upon the permanent minutes of the board this 22nd day of April, 2021, with a copy to be sent to her bereaved family. Respectfully submitted, Nancy Wilt, President, Nicholas Miller, Vice President, Sarah J. Brace, Lisa A. Conover, Phoebe D. Harris, Cheryl L. Johnson-Watts, Audrey Matheson, Charlie F. Thiel, Linda Vega.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. If we could please just have a moment of silence in honor of Ms. Bidding. Thank you. The rest of the Board of Directors report includes the board secretary, feasibility study, agreement of sale, repurpose of bond, board governance proposal. Before I ask for a motion, there is a feasibility study report, so I would like to ask that my colleague and Vice President Nick Miller, who also chairs the building committee, open this item.
Thank you, Nancy. And before I turn over to our architect to produce the feasibility study, I just would like to thank the administration, Tom Smith, Jen Ramos, and most importantly, Thomas Parker. We put a lot of hours into this effort, and it shows the board's commitment and the administration's commitment to providing a safe and equitable learning environment for our students. So without further ado, I'll turn over to Steve Barron to present the feasibility study.
Good evening, everyone. I'll share my screen. Mr. Rivera, if I could have the opportunity to share the screen. Thank you. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening and present the feasibility study. And my name is Steve Behrens. I am a principal at Breslin Architects here in Allentown. And I'll just very briefly join the chorus of thanks to Mr. Parker. Personally, we met in the early stages of the Hayes Elementary School design, and his participation and interest in that was inspiring, and enjoyed hearing his thoughts and his contributions to the design, which were great to help us with the design of that building. Brief introduction to myself and the firm. We are located here in Allentown, Pennsylvania since 1964. We do specialize in public school design. 95% of our work is public school design. Long history with ASD of service, and exciting ones began back in 1973. What we're talking about tonight is an update to the feasibility study. And to put that in its proper context, it is an update to a study. We've done a series of studies over the years, the most recent being a full district-wide study in 2017. And what we're seeing tonight is an update to that study that focuses on 3 buildings, and that is Jefferson Elementary, Harrison Morton Middle School, and Robb Middle School. As you can see by these dates, these are schools that have been around for a long time, almost a century in all cases. And so we assessed those and looked at those as as directed by the board, and to in their position as those most in need and in alignment with the middle school transformation process. So this is a map of our district, and just identifying the buildings that were part of the study. Robb down there in the lower left, Jefferson along the bottom, Harrison Morton there in almost the center of the screen in the first ward, and then around that are some of the other facilities that were taken into consideration in terms of potential sites, and then as swing space as we would look at phasing of these projects. One of the early stages in connecting with stakeholders to begin the process was a board questionnaire, and the school board gave us important feedback on that, and the key takeaways from it were a direction to compare the relative value of new construction versus renovations, and the best way to provide healthy education environment for students, the greatest needs in the middle school, and the feeling there was the overwhelming concern for the poor condition of the schools and the inability, importantly, of those aging buildings to support quality contemporary education models that the district wishes to provide. Recommended solutions were new schools were favored over renovation and expansion, largely because of the recognition that gives us the best opportunity to create those environments. We looked at grade alignment, and that can continue moving forward. Key considerations identified were the age range of students and the program focus within the buildings. Building size, looking at the difference between studying the opportunity for larger buildings that might include greater opportunities for amenities within them over smaller buildings that could provide smaller learning environments. And considerations to the project type. So looking at not only the building condition, but also its ability to support the education environment and the open space, what surrounds the building and its site, and sites to consider. Most often was reported Building 21 as a site to look at, one of the district-owned properties, but there were others as well. This represents a glimpse of the capital improvement plans that were evaluated for each of those subject buildings. So this was a process where we looked at the buildings, updated those capital improvement plans that were developed in 2017. And the important thing to keep in mind here is there was a list of items and deficiencies, quantification of that, cost associated with it, and then a prioritization. And those capital plans for each building and the cost that they encompassed totaled up on this slide here. And you'll see at Robb, there was $33.7 million, Harrison Morton, $30 million, and at Jefferson Elementary School, $17.6 million, totaling up to $82 million in deficiencies and needs and capital improvements that were necessary for those buildings over the next 10 years. I'll pause for just a moment to draw your attention to those who are following along in the study booklet. There is a page reference down in the bottom right of each slide. And I will show you at the end how this the study can be made available and accessed by the public. Along with the capital improvement needs of the buildings, we also looked at the enrollment, the capacity of each building. And so here at the upper portion of the slide, you see the middle schools. From a capacity standpoint, it was really important to look at the middle schools in their totality in terms of the capacity. And we also looked at Jefferson as well. And so the second column there from the left indicates the current functional capacity of the building, according to Pennsylvania Department of Ed guidelines. And then the middle column on that left side there, the third one over, shows the actual enrollment calculated by looking at the buildings with respect to the usage of space, and then comparing that to what the actual enrollment of the building. This is what was reported in November of 2020. The next column, the fourth one, is decision insights. The district has a contract with Decision Insight to do enrollment projections. So we looked at that and compared those to the current functional capacity of the building. We also looked at the Pennsylvania Department of Ed projections. There's a different methodology between the Decision Insight estimates and the PDE estimates, so it's good to compare those for planning purposes. You'll see that the total there for middle schools is slightly different among those projections. And then the far right column is the difference. So where you're seeing a negative number in red, that's an indication that the comparison between the 10-year projection from Decision Insight and the current functional capacity of the building shows, looking out over that 10-year period, a deficit, meaning that there's more students than is under by PDE guidelines, the capacity of the building. And again, we totaled that up for the middle school population, and you'll see that on the total line at a deficit of 514 students looking out over the next 10 years. At Jefferson, we did the same comparison, the same process, and there is determined a surplus of space, although a minimal one over that time period. This series of slides here is just a graphic representation of that data. It's helpful to understand. The red dashed line is the current capacity of the building. In this case, it's Harrison Morton Middle School. The blue line represents those enrollment projections, and the red dot indicates the point at which we discovered the highest enrollment over the next 10 years. And that in particular, we're looking at it from the practical point of view that how could we address through capital improvements that those deficits. Obviously, as we sit here in 21, we don't really have the opportunity to do construction to the building that would impact that number in the immediate term. So we looked out at that next peak, in the case of Harrison Morton, of 863 students. This is the same graph for Francis D. Robb Middle School. You'll see that peak is out a little bit further in the 26-27 school year at 1,000 students. And interestingly, that curve is a little bit flatter, showing more consistency. Jefferson Elementary School has a peak there at 564 students. And again, as you can see in this case, the red dashed line is actually above those projections. So important note here, as we think about defining the final capacity of any buildings that would be designed, we do need to take into consideration that these graphs, especially with respect to Jefferson and Harrison Morton, they are trailing off in the future. So that can affect how we might design the capacity of the building. So now, taking that information, we developed options to resolve the the enrollment capacities, as well as the capital needs of those buildings. Option 1 had components in which we looked at a renovation only of Harrison, Morton, and Robb middle schools. And the important thing to note about that these renovations are that it's a little different from addressing the capital needs only, that this would be taking those capital needs and developing a project that addresses as many of those needs as we can in a cohesive project. It does have the effect of reducing the capacity of the building, because as you can imagine, if you take space to construct accessible toilet rooms, small group rooms for better educational support, administrative suites, necessary renovations from those sorts of perspectives. It's in these older buildings that don't have those spaces available, it will be necessary to take classroom space potentially for that. So we do reflect an anticipated reduction in the capacity of those buildings as we take space for these renovation projects. So to address then the impact of enrollment on the reduced capacity, we are expecting that if this option were exercised, there would be a need to create more capacity. And so we looked at potentially creating a smaller middle school, perhaps a magnet middle school, to avoid redistricting. And so the total of this option is $155 million. Each of these options we'll look at some graphics associated with it and plans. This is a view of the existing Robb Middle School, dashed line indicating its property. So you can see that it has constraints on the site that really don't allow additions to be constructed. There's very limited off-street parking and a compact building that's vertical in nature on its small 2.5-acre site. Harrison Morton, similar constraints, even more compact on very, very little off-street parking and a vertical building once again, and very little opportunity to go outside the existing walls. Each of these options, we looked carefully at advantages and disadvantages. So the advantages of option 1 would be that it does represent the lowest first cost. And I say first cost in the sense of construction, not necessarily taking into consideration costs, increased maintenance costs over the years ahead. There is not a requirement for land acquisition. Obviously, these buildings exist now on district land. And it does maintain the buildings in their current locations. It does provide, through the potential construction of a new, smaller magnet school, it would create the possibility of an East Side middle school, depending on which property is selected. The disadvantages of this option are the disruption of phased renovations to Harrison, Morton, and Robb. You can imagine to do that construction on occupied buildings, perhaps using some swing space elsewhere with buildings that the district owns, that there could be the opportunity to move some students out to accelerate that process. But even under the best of circumstances, it's a disruptive endeavor. Because of the limitations of the structure of the buildings and their site, it's not feasible to make those buildings 100% ADA accessible. A new building obviously would, but not the renovated buildings. You are looking at increased maintenance costs out beyond these 10-year windows, as well as within it, if because that first cost just doesn't address all of those needs. And there is the limitations on both parking, outdoor athletic space, construction staging that adds challenges to this project. Option 2, the components of this are 2 new middle schools, We looked specifically at the American Parkway site for one of those locations, and in addition onto Building 21 as the other. Those could easily provide capacity for 1,900 students or more, depending on the design of the building and the decisions made with regard to those capacities. The American Parkway site, we estimate at about $82 million for construction of a new state-of-the-art middle school there. And at Building 21, we estimate that that building would be in the range of $89 million for a total of $171 million for the combined construction of those two buildings. Graphics to show you a concept of how this might be undertaken. This is the American Parkway site at the Parkway and Gordon Street. The existing school district athletic field there is on the left-hand side of the parcels. This is a visual showing how a middle school could be conceived on that site, utilizing the parcels that are available. So it's with the site bounded on the left-hand side, which is the southern side of the site by the existing athletic field. Then the building in the middle, there's a great opportunity to provide state-of-the-art core spaces, auditorium, gymnasium, and then a vertically oriented academic wing. It would require a 4-story classroom wing to accommodate the population that would span Gordon Street. There's, and then on the north side of Gordon, there's an opportunity for cafeteria and well-conceived receiving and service support for the building. We do need to take into consideration that there are homes on this northern end of the property, but there's a great opportunity to provide some green space there on the corner of Liberty and 3rd. Across 3rd is an opportunity for a parking lot, open space, but hardscaped for parking. There are a few houses that would front in that direction to the south, but for the most part, that is the backyards of people's homes that would face this parking lot. The red line, I'll point out that snakes its way across the site is the floodplain. And that creates some challenges with this site. So as you can see here, most of the tan building shape is within that floodplain of the Jordan Creek. So that would require us to elevate this building. The requirement is that it be above the floodplain elevation, the floor line. So that would require us to build up this, the first floor of this building substantially. And move on now to Building 21. So this is the existing site. You can see the existing building there to the upper side. And then you're probably familiar with those terraced parking lots that step down towards Martin Luther King Drive. Again, you see that red floodplain line coming across this site as well. Here's a sketch of what a building conceived on this site could look like. Again, the existing building remains at the upper end of the site, and we have an opportunity for some shared core facilities that could benefit the existing building as well. Again, new state-of-the-art facilities, auditorium, related arts, music, cafeteria, gymnasium in that central core there, that boomerang shape, if you will, that provides support to the existing building, and then also to a middle school academic wing that then would step down the site. That would be potentially a 3-story academic wing. It can be have a larger footprint and not necessarily be quite as tall. We could imagine that because of that step in the grade, then the middle floor elevation could connect back to those core facilities. And then there's an opportunity for, again, ample parking on the site and outdoor physical education field. That those are program elements that can be within the floodplain. A natural turf field could be within that floodplain adjacent to Martin Luther King. And then it's interesting to note how that then could connect across the street to the Lehigh Parkway and sort of continue that open space up to address the building itself. Advantages and disadvantages of option 2. The advantages are a new state-of-the-art middle school in the first ward could be constructed on the American Parkway site with no disruption to the Harrison Morton existing facility during construction, because it's a different site. And then when the building's complete, students can move in. American Parkway site is adjacent to that district-owned athletic field, so there's an opportunity for some adjacent outdoor space there. The improvements to, in addition to Building 21, give the opportunity for new shared court facilities. And that new state-of-the-art middle school at Building 21 is close to the downtown student population. The data provided by Decision Insight indicates that, at least at the present time, there is a concentration of students, middle school students, in the downtown area. It's a double-edged sword because it's a little bit distant from where the existing Robb facility is at present. The disadvantages of this option with the American Parkway site in particular is it does require the land acquisition. There's additional cost to demolish those existing structures that are on that site. The floodplain increases the cost of development, as I explained, and it is there is a need for a 4-story element for the academic wing there that would span Gordon Street. At the Building 21 site, the sloping site does create challenges that add cost, opportunities as well from an architectural design standpoint, but it is challenging. And then once again, that floodplain does limit development at the southern end of the site. The third option we looked at was developing a second location potentially in the ward for a new middle school at the Bucky Boyle site. Again, that addition, new middle school at the Building 21 site. And because the Bucky Boyle site is home to that very important community resource of athletic fields, we need to conceive of a way, if this were to move forward, to recreate those in some way. So the Harrison Morton site is not large enough to recreate those fields. Actually, the 3rd Street athletic field is not either in its ability to recreate the baseball and softball fields. So we'd have to look for that space. And so we've included a hypothetical cost to acquire land. And so that totals up to $169 million for option 3. Again, some graphics I'll move through quickly. This is the existing Bucky Boyle site. Would draw your attention to those athletic fields that are indicated there. There's a baseball field, a softball field, and then a diagonal football field between the skinned areas of the fields. There are some other adjacent parcels that are nearby. This is a concept of how a middle school could be developed on that site. It again is a very compact building, and that would actually, to provide site circulation, it would require a piece of that adjacent parcel for a bus turnaround. Other things I'll note here, as you see the power substation there to the left of the site. There's a water intake station that supports the wastewater plant. And then, of course, the existing Bucky Boyle Park on the right-hand side bounds this site in a way that would require a very, very compact building. And also site access for both pedestrians and vehicles is less convenient here than other potential sites. The building does stay out of the floodplain. Again, we're showing that red line that essentially just follows the contours of the river. Once again, that Building 21 site is part of this option. The advantages and disadvantages of option 3 is, again, we do keep that middle school in the first ward. The opportunity to improve Building 21 with new shared facilities. And then also that Building 21 site, once again, is available and near that downtown student concentration. And the disadvantages are, with respect to the Bucky Boyle site, is it does require land acquisition. It's not currently owned by the district. There are those safety concerns with those utilities I identified. Very difficult to conceive how we could replace those community athletic fields nearby. It does require off-site pedestrian and vehicle access improvements. Parking, construction staging, also very limited in that area for construction. The Building 21, again, those same two challenges reported here with respect to the sloping site and the floodplain limits. And finally, there are some additional options that we looked at. These are not called additional because they're less important, but we identified them as additional because they're either variations on the theme, or in the case of Jefferson, they could plug into any one of these options to address those needs. So going through these 5, we looked at the possibility of locating that smaller magnet school I discussed earlier on the state hospital site. We looked at the opportunity at an expanded Building 21 of potentially including some CTE program space. And we looked also there at the district potentially locating a new district administration addition there. The requirements of Act 34 and the limitations of school reimbursement make it nearly impossible to construct a standalone administration building, but we were charged with looking at options for that. And then the option of replacing Jefferson Elementary versus renovating Jefferson Elementary, again, towards that instruction to compare the two. And here is a graphics to support those additional options. And this is the state hospital site. We're putting this at the zoomed out view to show you that this is in response to one of the options that was suggested by the development of this site. Only one of those options did include space for a school. And so this is reflective of what was called that town square option. As we would zoom in, we would, on the limited site that was so designated, it would again be a compact middle school, but there's still an opportunity for parking in that parcel that was identified. And the plan also did indicate an outdoor space for athletics. And so that is adjacent to the school and presumably would be available for school use. This is, here we're going to see two of those variations on the theme, so to speak, for Building 21. The middle school construction is the same, but if you look to the north of the existing building at the top there, we're indicating a 2-story building addition for classrooms. And this is in response to potentially investigating creating space for CTE programming. That existing building is a very robust structure, solid utilities, open floor plan with good floor to floor heights that would suit itself to renovation for those purposes. And then it would displace classrooms that we would then deal with in that way indicated. This is a second option where we're showing a 2-story district administration addition. That would be about 42,000 square feet to replace the existing facility. And then finally with Jefferson here, this is an aerial of the existing plan. You can see that the building has the benefit of playground, both soft and hard play areas right adjacent to it. There are some homes and other parcels on that block as well. We could imagine a new building constructed on this site, and again, utilizing as swing space some of the other district buildings that could be available for this population of just over 500 students to vacate the building, to demolish and construct it on this site, in its place, a new state-of-the-art elementary school, preserving, of course, those parcels of residences, and then still have space for outdoor play, for parking, the proportion of which is flexible as the design would move forward. So that concludes the presentation, but I do want to let you know that this is available through a link. So you can scan this QR code off your screen immediately here, or I will let you know that if you navigate to our website, which is www.breslinarchitects.com, and if you go to our profile tab that is in the upper right of the home screen, that will take you to a page where you can select the newsworthy tab on the left-hand side, and that will take you to another page where the topmost item just loaded today is a PDF of this presentation.
Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate it. And just a point of clarification for the public, the feasibility study identifies the need and potential options the district may consider, using a strategic approach and community-focused approach to invest in our infrastructure through the district. So the vote tonight about that study is to accept it and not to move forward with one of the options, just to be clear on that. Nancy, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Behrens, for your presentation. Appreciate you sharing that out with the board and the public. At this time, I would entertain a motion for approval of the Board of Directors report.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Thiel, is there any discussion from my colleagues? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover.
Yes.
8-0, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam.
I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Ms. Harris. I didn't realize that you were able to come back. I apologize.
That's okay.
Miss Harris,
Yes.
9-0, motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Harris. Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this time, that moves us along in our agenda to the policy report, where we will be reviewing 3 policies, policy 203, 206, and 251. May I have a motion for approval, or not reviewing, but voting on? May I have a motion for approval of the policy report?
I make the motion.
Was that you, Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Ms. Conover? Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands raised, Madam Secretary, can you please call the vote?
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Miss Harris,
Yes.
Miss Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
9-0, motion passes.
Thank you very much. That leads us to the Secretary and Treasurer's report. May I have a motion for the approval of the Secretary and Treasurer's report?
So moved.
Mr. Thiel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Miller, is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands raised, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Ms. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
9-0, motion passes.
Thank you very much. That leads us to the superintendent's report. Items on this report are City of Allentown mentoring agreement, facilities plan for the IU, Q interactive assessment, Waterford programming, graduation, and the calendar for the upcoming school year. May I have a motion for the approval of the superintendent's report?
Madam Secretary, before a motion is taken, can you pull Exhibit F so I can read a specific motion to go along with that one?
So
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve everything except Exhibit F.
thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
So moved.
Ms. Matheson? All in favor of approving the superintendent's reports, letter A through E, is what we will be voting on. Madam Secretary, can you please call the vote, and then we will vote separately on letter F.
Yeah, Mrs. Wilt, can you repeat who seconded that motion?
Ms. Matheson.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes. I'm sorry, I got stuck. Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Ms. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson.
Yes.
Items A through E pass 9-0.
Thank you very much. So may I have a motion for the approval of letter F of the superintendent's report?
Can I, this is Sarah,
Yeah.
can I read a specific motion that goes along with it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the 2021-2022 instructional calendar with a student start date on September 7th, 2021, and the approval of the 2022-2023 calendar to include the student start date beginning prior to Labor Day on Monday, August 29th, 2022, with staff start dates adjusted accordingly.
So that is now the motion that has been read into the meeting. So that is the motion that we are voting on. So I would need somebody, is that the official motion, Mr. Taylor? Do we need somebody to actually make that motion now that Sarah has read it? I just want to clarify for point of order.
Sarah was, I thought Sarah was making the motion. I'd second.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I wanted clarity. Thank you very much. So the motion was made by Ms. Brace, that was seconded by Mr. Thiel. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Can you repeat that motion?
Sure can. It's the approval of the 2021-2022 instructional calendar with a student start date of September 7th, 2021, and the approval for the 2022-2023 calendar to include the student start date beginning prior to Labor Day on Monday, August 29th, 2022, with staff start dates adjusted accordingly.
Thank you, Mrs. Brace.
Yep.
No further discussion.
Thank you. Any other colleagues have discussion or questions? Seeing no hands raised, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yeah.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
9-0, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the next agenda item, which is the personnel report. May I have a motion for the approval of the personnel report?
So moved.
Mr. Thiel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Miller, is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands raised, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
9-0, motion passes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the finance report. May I please have a motion for the approval of the finance report?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Thiel is the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no hands raised, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel.
Yes.
9-0, motion passes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the building report. May I please have a motion for approval of the building report?
So moved.
Mr. Miller, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Thiel, is there any discussion? Seeing no hands raised, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Ms. Vega.
Yes.
9-0, motion passes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the point in our meeting where we will provide the public opportunity to provide public comment on non-agenda items. If you wish to speak, please use the hand raise feature. I will call on you in the order that I see your hands go up, and then when you're called on, please remember to include your name and your city of residence, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Mr. Rivera, can you please unmute Jahira Alvarez Washington?
Hello, thank you. Jahida Aviles, Washington, East Side, Allentown, Pennsylvania, 18109. First, congratulations to our Building 21 student representative on your acceptance to Cedar Crest College. Secondly, I'm excited to announce a new and free resource for our ASD elementary school babies and community, Cyber Learning Club by Unidos. The families of Allentown School District have identified the struggles of balancing homework and school workload with each one of their children during COVID-19, but especially for elementary school babies. Many of our ASD families are struggling with connectivity, language, homework help, technology assistance, and food insecurity. The Cyber Learning Club will help remove barriers for our families. Parents can schedule free tutoring sessions for their children. Please visit weareunidos.org, click on Cyber Learning, and fill out the form, one per child, to make your request. You can also contact me directly via email at yaviles@weareunidos.org. Lastly, I speak directly to Mr. Parker, our superintendent, an incredible, powerful, trailblazing leader whom I'm privileged to call my friend. My name was thrown onto your desk by the PA Department of Education. You never shied away. Instead, you welcomed me to meeting after meeting, all while taking notes of all of my and our village concerns and grievances. Not only did you listen, you strategically implemented, excuse me, effective change with great growth, strides, and empowerment along the way. You, your leadership, your guidance, your smile, your big heart, the big bear hugs, and your sarcasm especially will be greatly missed. And I say that from the deepest pits of my heart. I, my babies and family wish you and your family the absolute best of wishes, blessings, and peace in all you do, because you absolutely deserve that. Continue to work your magic, for you make a difference and you change lives for the better. Thank you for the tremendous, beautiful impact you've had on my life, the lives of my babies, but most importantly, thank you for the priceless impact you've made on all of our ASC babies. You'll be missed, and we adore you. Thank you for everything you've done for us, Mr. Parker. That is all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rivera, can you please unmute Jason Jenkins?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. State your
Okay,
name
yes.
and city of
Sure.
residence for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Jason Jenkins, 5216 Spring Ridge Drive. I virtually appeared before the board several months ago. I was in DC on that day with Jason Moorhead, and I had implored you guys to try to help end the confusion and to conduct a thorough and quick investigation. I'd just like to report at this time, several months later, not one of us has been contacted by anyone from the school district, no representatives at all. And I just wanted to say that briefly, and also say to the other side that really this is disrespectful on their part towards you. You guys have expressed outrage at what happened that day, and why wouldn't the school district talk to any of us? Everybody knows a quick fact gathering. That's what you do if you want to find out the truth, and that wasn't done here. And that's very important because you have to remember what happened with his employment is separate from the fact that Superintendent Parker said he was involved. And that words have meanings. And I can tell you right now, we've asked you guys to do something about this, and it certainly feels like we're at the intersection of don't know and don't care at this point, because no one has tried to contact us or to correct the record in any way. And you're accusing Jason of crimes, of being a felon. When you say someone's involved, that's placing them in the action. If your partner says they're involved with another person, you know what that means. It's pretty simple. So if the board is holding their hat on that they're not acting, I'd implore you to act, because it's not right what's going on. There's no proof that he committed any crimes or was in any way involved. And we're going on 3 months now, and you guys haven't made any attempt to, there's been no evidence presented in any way. There's been no attempt to retract it, edit it, correct the record in any way. And, you've purposely allowed this perception to become more powerful than what the reality was. And that's wrong. That's morally wrong what's going on here. I wonder how the superintendent and the assistant superintendent would feel if, they were publicly accused of violating community standards or crimes. We were all doxxed for defending him. It's not okay what happened. You've ruined careers and reputation over this. And so, I'd like to say, I think it's about time that the dog does wag the tail. And if Parker's not going to be willing to retract the statement tonight, I would ask the board to vote to retract that statement. Enough is enough. And there's absolutely no proof that he was involved in anything. And Jason Moorhead does not deserve this. So thank you. I appreciate the time to speak. And I implore you, Superintendent Parker, this is an easy one. You can take tonight before you leave tomorrow on your last day to do the right thing and retract the statement. He wasn't involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rivera, can you please unmute Jennifer Ortiz?
Hi, Jennifer Ortiz, North 6th Street, Allentown. I just want to say, Mr. Parker, I do wish you the best and your family the best in your endeavors. Mr. Parker, you were pretty much the only one that had responded to most of my emails regarding concerns for my baby and her serious mental health issues. And just your acknowledgement of that, whether I agreed or disagreed, meant a lot to me. I got no responses from not even the board members. You responded, and that means everything to me, and I need to acknowledge you for that. So thank you. Your most recent email to me a few weeks back did put me on the right path, and I was able to get some help for my daughter. So thank you again. Another thing I wanted to bring up was if there's been any discussion on possibly bringing in our babies that have 504 plans and IEPs 4 days a week, which can be done and the schools will still be under capacity. I think that should be something that should be looked into for the remainder of the school year for the kids that do need some extra help academically going forward. So if that could be taken into consideration, I'd really appreciate that. I know my daughter could benefit from that. And again, the school still would be under capacity according to CDC guidelines. That's all I have. Again, thank you, Mr. Parker. Your response to me and your acknowledgement of the concerns for my daughter, I really appreciate you. And I wish you and your family the best of luck in your endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rivera, can you please unmute Susie Beller?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you could just state your name and then just the city you live in for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Susie Baller, and I live in Whitehall. And my topics tonight are, since October 2020, there's been no director for our food service department. This has caused chaos and stress in our kitchens. The managers, they all look for answers, and there is no one. We as the workers look for answers, and we get mixed ones because each manager will come up with their own strategy or answer in waiting for leadership from other areas who have stepped in to try and take these answers on themselves. We're wondering when our last day is to have these kitchens up and running. Nobody's getting us answers on that. We have lives. We've worked through the pandemic. We've worked through all of this, and we've really have been under stress because there is no leadership. When jobs are available, there's delay in getting the jobs positions filled. There is, with that delay, of course, there's not people getting their pay at the start of when they should be. And this is all in our contract. It's very simple to follow. So I asked the board and whoever it's involved to please understand. We have a contract and we would really like that to be respected. Lastly, the communication with the other department administration heads, like Mr. Tom Smith and the principals and the custodial department, just having the communication and a director in place to communicate consistently across all of these planes would be fantastic. Since we've had chaos for so long, I would just really like that. Lastly, with my last couple of seconds, I'd like to wish Lois and Pat, who are our managers through the Child Nutrition Office, they are retiring, and I'd like to send them my best wishes. And of course, Mr. Parker, I'd like to send you my best wishes also. I yield the rest of my time, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rivera, can you please unmute Ashley Strange?
Hi, my name is Ashley Strange, and I'm calling from Allentown. I live on the south side. I am calling in to thank you for the presentation on safety, and some of the immediate concerns that came up were that it seemed like it seemed like the audit was just going to be of school buildings and not necessarily an audit of actual misconduct by officers and security. So I was hoping that could be cleared up. Also, it looks like having 4 SROs in the schools is less SROs than were at the beginning of last school year, but having police officers say that they are going to be patrolling the areas outside of the schools when school lets out, those aren't necessarily trained SROs. So you're putting people who don't have experience with children in a place where they have more access to them. I do want to thank you all for putting together that presentation, and I also hope that we'll be able to see some of the data from the studies that you put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no other hands raised at this time. So we'll move on to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board? Seeing no hands raised, we'll move on to new business. Is there any new business to, oh, Ms. Johnson-Watts, I'm sorry. Was that for new business? Okay. You have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to mention something that I found out is happening in the Bethlehem Area School District, as well as the Parkland District, and it might be of interest to us here in Allentown. The YWCA Allentown and YWCA Bethlehem is conducting a 21-day racial equity and social justice challenge. The 21-day racial equity and social justice challenge is designed to create dedicated time and space to build more effective social justice habits, particularly those dealing with issues of race, power, privilege, and leadership. The challenge started Monday, April 19th, and continues Monday through Friday through May 17th. The 21-day equity challenge was created by Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. and co-developed with Debbie Irving and Dr. Marguerite Pennick. The plan has been adopted by organizations, associations, and corporations all over the nation and world. Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. is the director of the Privilege Institute in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Dr. Moore created the challenge to not only help people better understand issues surrounding equity, inclusion, privilege, leadership, and supremacy, but also to do so in a way that would build a habit of learning by stretching it over 21 days. The YWCA Allentown and YWCA Bethlehem are excited to be offering this 21-day challenge in partnership with Dr. Moore. And as people engage in the various activities over the 21 days, they'll also be able to tag, comment, and follow the 21-day racial equity habit building challenge on Facebook. So I just wanted to mention that to everyone. It is available through the website ywcachallenge.org. And if you sign up, you can send your information so that you receive an email Monday through Friday. And don't worry if you didn't start on the 19th, because there's going to be an archive readily available for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Johnson-Watts. Is there any other new business that my colleagues want to bring before the board? Seeing no hands raised, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ms. Johnson-Watts, seconded by Ms. Conover. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a very good night.
Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Thank you.